Are we having fun, people? Yeah. Okay.
I could take it. You can't do that.
And the next award on Westerns is the second Tuesday in July. That would be July the 11th. And our guest already, we've got a commitment from Michael Learned, who, except for Janet, is the only one who's ever slept with Matt Dillon.
That's true.
So we're rolling. Here we go. We're going again. Hi, I'm Rob Ward. Welcome once again to the show that's about Westerns, and we like to honor our heroes, and we're going to do that today by talking about one of the biggest, one of the tallest, that's right, James Arness. And joining us today is Janet Arness. Janet, come on in.
Rob,
Nice to see you. You're looking mighty Western there, lady.
Well, I do my best.
Well, everybody loves Jim, and we're celebrating this year his 101st birthday.
That's correct.
Wow.
We are. And John Wayne and Jim happen to have the same birthday.
Let's not forget Tonto.
Yeah, right.
May,
I know,
May
I
the
didn't
26th.
know that.
Yes.
I know, that's fantastic.
All three icons.
Yeah.
What was it like when you'd go out with Jim to other places? Because he's hard to miss.
Yes.
And people would say, oh, look, there's Matt Dillon. It's the icon. Was he?
When a fan would come up to Jim, he was very open. And I was surprised because he would ask them the questions, like, well, where are you from? And, what are you doing here? And he'd be very open with them. Didn't bother him. I think when his kids were young, that, he wanted to keep the kids away from all that. Mm-hmm. But no, he was a lot of fun, and I think people enjoyed that.
Well, everybody who ever met him talked about his sense of humor and his laugh.
Yes, he had a laugh that would stop the set. Yeah.
Well, that was the problem, though, wasn't it? He'd start laughing and they couldn't shoot.
That has happened a couple of times. In fact, when he was doing them with Jimmy Whitmore, and they had to go into this scene where they're in the morgue and they pull out the body and they take the sheet off the person, and Jimmy Whitmore and Jim look at each other. Well, they cracked up and they could not stop laughing. And finally, the director said, cut, and they had to go and other rooms, and they had to compose themselves and then come back. Because, and you
boys aren't allowed to play together anymore.
Yeah, so every time I see that movie, when they're going to take the sheet off, I'm looking at Jim's face. Is he going to crack up,
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Well, people say that when he would come out in the morning on set, and if they could hear his laughter even as he was walking to the spot where he was going to be shooting.
Oh, yeah.
How much fun that must have been for you to you went on location on several of the films. I know Red River.
Right.
And it was hot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, hot. Oh, my goodness. It was, well, not Red River so much, but the Alamo. Mm-hmm. It was down in Brackettville. And I think it was about 110. And, the humidity. Everybody was in T-shirts and shorts. And Jim comes out, wool pants, a shirt, a wool vest, and a jacket, and a hat, and goes up to the bell tower. And I remember him saying that the sound guy had a thermometer, and it was 120 up there. Oh. So that was hot. Yeah. And Jim's only request was, just have the motorhome cool when I get off. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? They didn't have it cool because of the sound. As the generator. Mm-hmm. So Jim said, next time have it cool. Well, they didn't.
How did they solve that?
Well, Jim never lost it. I mean, Jim was really pretty cool, but he swung the door open and he said, if you don't put this generator on, we're not doing this movie. So after that, they moved his trailer and he had his air conditioning.
Wasn't there a big storm in Brackettville when you were shooting the Alamo too?
Oh yeah, yeah. We were. I was in the motorhome, but Jim was on the set, and lightning hit the generator and actually blew it up. And I mean, luckily nobody got hurt, but it started to pour rain, and Jim comes running into the trailer and he says, "Quick, we got to get out of here." And I'm going, what's going on? And he said, "We got to get out before everybody starts moving the cars and trucks because it's going to be muddy." And he said, "We'll never get out of here." So he jumps in the car, I jump in with him, and we're going down the road, and there's a little hill, and we're kind of sliding, and he said, and I'm going like, "Oh my gosh, Jim, be careful." I said, "I can see the headlines now. Arness kids killed at the Alamo." It was wild.
Sleeping with Matt Dillon was a dream of everybody's. Most of the women, I mean, most of the women. Some of the guys, I don't know, but...
Yeah, we had a long bed.
yeah. How long was your bed?
It was long.
Especially made, obviously.
Well, it was extra long.
How tall was he really?
Originally, Jim was 6'7", and then, he was injured in the war, and over the years, he got down to 6'6", but still pretty
down
tall.
to 6'6".
Yeah.
I wish.
Well, no, because when Jim was young, at 14, he grew to 6'7", and he was so embarrassed because kids would tease him. You think kids get teased today, but that was one thing that always bothered him, and I think that kind of made him on the shy side.
I bet it did.
It did.
Yes. Well, it sure worked out for him.
It did.
You see pictures of him with Duke, and Duke kind of looks squatty.
Duke, Jim just really, he told me one time, I met a lot of actors, and there was always something about Duke that was so special. He would walk in, and you just knew this man had a special sense about what he was doing, and they had a great relationship. Jim really admired him.
Well, he was fortunate, I think, that Duke sort of took him under his wing and mentored him, and he could see what it was like to be the boss of a set, the leader, and set the tone, because on 20 years of Gunsmoke, from everybody that I talked to, he never lost his cool. Jim he would disappear or something.
Well, and that's what Wayne told him, because Jim didn't want to do Gunsmoke. And Wayne said, this is a good opportunity to learn the business and, how to control things. And, but Jim really took that to heart, because I don't think Jim would have done Gunsmoke without Wayne.
Television, it was tainted. Nobody who was doing features wanted to really go into television because it was a downgrade for them. Although, of course, a lot of them did. It was just hard to go the other direction.
Well, that's right, because Jim was shooting a movie at the time, and the director told him, "Hey, you do television. If this doesn't work out in a year or two, you're through. You're not going back to movies." So Jim was scared. He was really scared, and I think talking to Wayne made him realize, hey, it's going to be okay. And of course, Wayne did the introduction, which Jim had no idea Wayne was going to do that. And he was sitting at home with his family watching TV to the opening of Gunsmoke, and here comes John Wayne. And Jim, it just blew Jim. I mean, blew him away.
Very emotional.
Yeah, it was really, that was special of Wayne.
Well, I know that he and Duke did in Hawaii, Big Jim McLAIN. Did he ever talk about that? Maybe surfing at that time?
He did. He did. In fact, he surfed with Wayne's brother. They rented some surfboards, and I think it was Wayne's brother. Yeah, it was John Wayne's brother. So the two of them on Jim's day off, they went out surfing. And that's when Jim discovered Hawaii and surfing. Yeah.
Did you all go and spend much time in Hawaii?
Well, Jim rented a house there on Wakaha.
Where the big waves are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, his son's a big surfer. Jim loved to surf, and Jim had the big surfboards, but his son was a big surfer. Yeah, and Jim knew all the natives there, Buffalo and all the guys.
And he took a harrowing boat trip to Hawaii in Sea Smoke 3, I think, the big catamaran.
Well, it was Sea Smoke. Well, yeah, I think it was Sea Smoke 3. And at that time, it was the largest catamaran built. It was 60 feet. And
They had to have that big bed.
yeah, and it was right in the hull there, you know. And so Jim told me that when they were racing, and he always thought, well, what happens, because catamarans can tip over, if I'm in there at night or even during the day taking a nap and we flip. So what did he do? He had an axe with him. He put the axe right there in case he had to break through the wall.
Wow.
Yeah, so, but that was exciting. Yeah, that was a wonderful trip. And then later he donated the boat to the Sea Scouts.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And his boats kept getting larger and larger.
Over the years, yeah.
Yeah. Well, sailing is a great sport too, I'm sure. And Buddy Ebsen was a sailor at the time. Did they sail together?
No,
Did
but
they
he
race?
was in that race. Yeah. Yeah.
I know that Jim was a flyer, a pilot too, and had several planes over the years. And he took I think his last big trip was to Alaska, where in the book that he wrote, it's a wonderful autobiography that Jim wrote. It goes into the detail of how frightening it was where they were lost in Alaska.
Right. When they took off from the airport, they were heading back home, and they took off from Alaska, and it was a clear day, and up there the weather changes like immediately. And what Jim had a friend of his who was a commercial pilot, and John Mantley was with him. So they got up, and it started clouding up, and this pilot, his friend, said, well, you better go a little higher. So Jim got higher to get over the clouds. Well, pretty soon it was filling in, and this pilot says to Jim, you got to go higher. Jim said, I don't have oxygen. We're as high as we're going to get. And this friend of his just kind of was like quiet for a minute, and Jim saw an opening in the clouds, and he started going down because he could see the Elkan Highway. And he thought, if I can get through here, we'll be okay, because there were mountains coming up ahead. And he started going down, and this commercial pilot freaked out because he goes, you can't do that. And Jim knew there was no other way. And Jim got him down, and they got below the clouds, and it was pouring rain. And they landed at the next airport. And the pilot, who was just used to instruments, not used to a private plane, he goes into the men's room and he passes out. But that was about the closest Jim ever got to losing it. But he flew his other planes to Baja, and I mean, with surfboards. And this is before anybody went to Baja. Yeah, it was great.
Well, you mentioned his right leg and his war wound. I know Ben Bates doubled him a lot toward the end, even in some distant walking shots. Did he have multiple surgeries for that?
He did. When they were doing How the West Was Won, you can even see his one right leg was bowed. So he had surgery on that. And then later, it got infected, and he had to have another surgery. Yeah, yeah. So it affected him all his life. But Jim was in the military after he got out of the service, but he was still in the hospital for a year and a half with that wound. And the doctor told him, he said, you're young, and you'll be able to function, but as you get older, you're going to have problems. And he did. But he always had osteomyelitis in that leg because he still had fragments of the bullet wound, bullets.
Well, luckily in the How the West Was Won, he was able to, his character, he didn't have to hide the limp.
Right.
It worked.
Oh, that was so
for
great.
The character. Yeah.
And Bruce was so great in it. Yeah.
Well, tell us how great Bruce was in there.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you how great he was. they had another guy that they wanted to put in that part, and they were looking at different actors to play Jim's nephew. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Eisner was there, and Jim and Mantley, and they were all watching. They had 4 different actors, and so Eisner says, well, I like the second guy. And everybody's quiet for a minute, and Jim thought, well, it's now or never, but he said, no, I like the third guy. I like this guy, Bruce Boxleitner.
He had prettier hair.
And so that's how Bruce got the part, and he fit perfect in it.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Bruce said when you first came to the set, everybody was very excited to meet you and Jim. Could you feel that energy?
Well, I think, yeah, I could. I mean, it was like the first time I had been on the set with Jim, and we had just gotten married. And so, everybody was like, who is she? And yeah, it was a little intimidating, but, everybody was so sweet on the set. They were
well,
really
it must have been nice to go on location with Jim, except for the heat.
Yeah, right.
But in Red River, because he took over Duke's role, do you remember him talking about his feeling for that, what it meant?
Yeah, I do. I remember that he was hesitant because he loved John Wayne in that movie. I mean, it was great. And The Quiet Man was one of his other favorites. But yeah, he really hesitated. He thought, I don't know if I'm up to, what Duke did in the, and, it turned out okay. But
it did.
I think Wayne's was better.
Well, they're different. You have a feature film and a longer shoot and a lot of money,
right?
Versus a TV movie. But for a TV movie, it's higher. It's better than most TV movies.
Oh, yeah. It was. But I think Jim, in his heart, he was, you can't compare, Jim and Wayne. Wayne was, to Jim was.
But they're both icons.
Yeah, they are. But, Wayne was his idol. I was very lucky. Yeah. Jim was a wonderful person and a wonderful husband.
Did you love all the outdoor stuff that he liked, like flying and sailing and fishing?
I don't know what my life would have been without Jim, because he opened up so many doors, and I loved every minute of it.
Well, I really love hearing these stories, and I know everybody else does too, because his presence is still felt. There's been no show ever like Gunsmoke, and it speaks a lot for him in that it's running on multiple channels all the time, every day. The half-hour black and whites, the hour-long black and whites, the color hours.
I know, and it's great. I get to see him and hear his voice every day, and I think Jim was in every episode.
Except for the one with Bruce.
Yeah. But he might have been in the very beginning. He may have only been in a few minutes, and then he was out surfing, but then he was in every episode.
Well, when you met him, was he still surfing then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh yeah.
Did you surf as well?
No.
You waved from the beach?
Yeah, I got on the a little raft and I'd come and go. But the big waves at Hollister were too big for me.
Well, we love watching him, and it means a lot for you to come and join us here, Janet, and it's a treat.
It's always good talking to you, Rob, and I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. Let's hear it for Janet.